Thank you very much. Today we're going to talk about the future of hyper casual. As you all know, it's very hard to talk about future because whatever we're going to say is going to be, we never know. We are not magicians who can predict future, but based on the data, based on the analysis which we perform, we can imagine what's waiting for us in the future and try to prepare for those changes. And my first question would be, what was the biggest change you have spotted this year, which you think will continue to influence the market in 2023?
I'm Alex. I'm a founder at Dorfer Games. We have released a few games with a total of 10 million installs. And answering you, I would like to mention probably not, I don't know. Yeah. I would like to mention a few things. First of all, there was a lot of post-COVID activity, which is falling right now, and there is not so many money in the market, for example, at the moment. Also, the second problem is that the genre is kind of struggling, or it's also an economy recession in general in the market. And also about the subgenres for hyper-casual, the most successful genre was runners, and to be honest, right now nobody knows where to go, what to do next with the runners. There were a lot of studios who were testing runners. They now moved into the idle arcade games, but it's the same. The idle arcade is smaller, but the competition is great. So I guess there are a few challenges here in the market. Yeah.
So, hi everyone, my name is Can. I'm co-founder of HyperMonk Games. We are a self-publishing studio and we are launching our own games. We have approximately 10 million installs, as Aleksandr said. In my opinion, the decreasing trend will continue because the major problem is about the CPI. Algorithms are changing in Facebook, TikTok, Google, and also on ad networks, and that's why our costs are increasing. So that's why we need to find more LTV games. We need more retention to have profitability. In other case, in before we were doing like launches with day 130 retention, day 125 retention. Those are day zero games. We were earning money in day zero, but now it's impossible with those costs. So that's why we need to find more efficient products, more longer retentions, more longer play times. So that's we need right now. In 2023, I think that especially hyper casual studios will turn to hybrid casual to unlock in-app purchases and understand what is going on that mechanics. So I think the sector will go like that in 2023.
Hello everyone, I'm Türker, CEO of Udo Games, and as Udo Games, it's been like almost 10 years since we founded the company, and we have hit games like on IO genre, hyper casual genre, and currently we only focused on hybrid casual genre. And nowadays we are trying to scale a few hybrid casual genre that we tested with our in-house team and that the studios we are testing with. And it's gonna keep going like this for us. Like, I mean, this is one of the topics that like why we switched on to the hybrid casual genre, like from hyper casual. Like that's similar to what Can says. Like it's always getting harder and harder to make profitable games. Like since there are lots of technical reasons also behind on the marketing side too. Like the biggest change I think will be like the approach to the markets. Like I mean, before that, there are still publishers that still keeping the same approach. Like just find the best CPI as possible, and you are gonna make the game profitable in some way. That's not the approach that will be suitable for the next year. Like I mean, you can still find games like 20 cents, 15 cents, or 30 cents. Still, there are games that you can find nowadays, but most of those games are being killed day by day, even though you try lots of different mechanics or lots of new updates, because the market doesn't let you to do that nevermore. Like the CPIs goes higher immediately. The first metrics are really hard to keep, and you have to design games like that will reach to much more LTV, that will reach to the day 7 retentions, or even more than that. And to design those kind of games, you have to change your approach, even from beginning to the designing phase, after on your monetization phase, etc., etc. And it's all about the approach. I think the approach will change a lot.
Okay, thank you. I'm joining on behalf of Qualia here. My name is Emin, and as the CEO here. Agreeing with my colleagues here, I think the biggest change in 2022 was the significant raise in CPIs. This will, of course, require developers to come up with game ideas that has like more depth in it, and that could potentially bring more retention and playtime. But doing this is going to be a bit tricky in 2023 because the types of games we need to come up with actually starts in the ideation process. So although CPI is still important, from the CPI phase, we need to know what kind of implementations we can add to the game in terms of depth in case we want to go further with our iterations with this game. High CPIs is the biggest change in my opinion. Thank you.
All right. So yeah, definitely the main challenges are the difficulty to get good metrics. They are rare nowadays. It's difficult to get your game to be profitable. That's what awaits us in 2023 most likely. And how does your company adapt to those challenges?
Okay, talking about our company, we, to be honest, reducing some costs and, for example, also focusing more on the product quality and depth, as well said, like more time spending on idea generation, focusing more. For example, we've tested a lot of hyper-casual games before, but almost like 80 or 90% of our current games are idle arcades because it's easier to get better in-app metrics, and it's easier, like, yeah, it's a problem to get a good CPI, but it's easier to make a profitable game. So yeah, we're trying to improve and to go into the depth and to make more probably hybrid casual games. That's the main point for us.
Yeah, as HyperMonk Games, our advantage in sector is we are growth experts as co-founders. So that's why we can understand all scalability, all marketability stuff. So first of all, we are trying to understand what the team is needing in the market, and after then we are choosing the mechanics right now. That's our solving type. So I think every company should think about the depth at first, and then marketability comes right now. Because if you don't have any retention or playtime, CPI means nothing. Because CPIs are also increasing very fast at this moment. When you put a game on Facebook, in 3 days, CPIs goes 100% higher. So you need to have very good in-game metrics. So you should think both of them on the same moment right now. In before, you can maybe think on only CPI or only maybe retention. It could work, but right now it's impossible. You should have both promising CPI and promising retention. So we are trying to find new mechanics which are implementing good in other hybrid casual games. I think copycat is a really important thing on that phase, because you should have some best practice from other games. That's also really important. You should understand all the good games behaviors. On our side, it's going like that.
For us, there are two topics here. I mean, the first one is, of course, like product quality. I mean, to adapt to new genres or the upcoming changes, one of the main topics are like the market is getting competitive day by day, more competitive, and the product qualities are getting higher like every day. And to differ from those similar games or to differ in the market, you need to increase your product quality and you need to adapt your team for like every details from your technical capacity to designing capacity, or even your creative capacity is really important. So those are the topics like we are pushing like every day. And the second and my personal favorite thing is like we are deep diving into designing phase a lot. Like it's like a daily base. Our lifestyle is like a designing a game and talking to the game in every possible minute as possible. Like this is one of the like when you think about the whole product, or even when you think about the scaling process, the designing phase is like almost 50% of this whole process. And since this is a huge amount of work for the future of your quality or your game, you need to increase your mental in here. Like you need to adapt to like every change on the designing phase. You need to research for like every upcoming games, and also for the monetization side too. Like you need to research for like new monetization models. You should consider how you can implement it to your games and what's the best solution for your game for that too. And one last thing is like one of the changes on our ideation side is like when we are talking about the game, we are also considering and we are also talking about the monetization of that idea too. Like even if we believe that the idea is really fun to play, and even if we believe that it has a huge potential CPI potential, but if the idea is not suitable for a good monetization model, or if we don't believe that we can vary the mechanics, or if we don't think that there is not a suitable model, monetization model for that idea, we decide to kill that idea, even those the other opportunities that we see in the idea. That's one of the new things for us.
Yeah, to adapt to this change, actually, there's a simple solution. You just need to change the way you make games. You need to change it completely, because we know the ways how to monetize games. Like you can implement in-app purchases or rewarded ads, but this is not just going to work instantly, because the game itself has to be as suitable with these features. The player needs to actually invest in watching the ads or actually purchasing, I don't know, making some in-app purchases. So it all comes down to game design. So I suggest developers to invest more in game design and maybe hire better designers, right? So you just need to change the way you've been approaching game design and adapt to this. Thanks.
All right. So as you can see, the right strategies would be optimizing the costs, thinking more already at the idea stage, how you're going to retain the player, how you're going to monetize your game further. So every phase of a game basically becomes more data-driven and less random and spontaneous, like it was before. And talking about ideas, actually, remember there were a lot of games based on shooting star trend. So, for example, like Squid Game. Do you think that in 2023 there's still room for such trends? And if yes, how people should approach those trends to make a great game?
Okay, so personally, I think the trend game will still alive, but from our experience, we are not into that. Because usually the problem is that you need to be as fast as possible, and you don't have enough space for adding additional monetization or iterating, etc., because you know that there are dozens of teams on working with the similar idea. Taking into example the Squid Game, there were, I don't know, hundreds of similar games in 1 or 2 days. They were all blocked by IP. One game is still here with millions of installs. But I think it will be harder to launch them because as we all said, the advertising monetization is not so stable, especially during the recession, and more publishers are trying to implement more in-app purchases, etc. And probably if your studio is faster than others, and you can be in top 1% to be able to publish the game. Probably you can find the publisher who are ready to work so fast to approve the ideas and to generate some trendy games. But for us, it doesn't work, to be honest, because with a lot of pipeline, with a lot of ideas improvement, it's hard, because we want to improve the core loop, for example, we want to make better art, etc., etc., and for us, it's not the right thing to do.
Yeah, what we lose on that point is those games will never end. Yeah, there will be many trendy games, but when you change your mindset to the hybrid casual, you should forget about all hyper casual things. If you have very big team or very big operational force, maybe you can do it if you find some hit thing or trend thing immediately. But in other case, we will have other pipelines when we go to the hybrid casual. So it will be very hard to change our way when we find some trends. But I think that in the sector it will never end, because every year many trends has come, but their LTVs are really low. They will earn money, but not too much. That's the case right now. Thank you.
Okay. There's a huge potential for organic downloads for those kind of trends. That's why what makes them juicy. I mean, when you are designing a trend-oriented mechanic, you feel like there will be like organic downloads, and that's a huge point for the marketing side. But there's a big but here. Like, I mean, when you see the market like this year, there are like much less trend-oriented games than the previous year, and it's gonna be much less next year too. But there are really key samples here too. Like, I mean, one of the latest samples are like, I guess, like Survivor.io. I mean, Survivor.io is a trend that comes from a PC game that is totally is inspired by a PC game, and there was a huge trend on the PC side with a really similar game, and but the difference is like they designed the game and they tested the game like with a full product. I mean, when they first released the game, the product was really complicated, the monetization was really complicated, and it was a really full scalable product, and it was a huge success at the end of the day. And it's kind of trend oriented game, but with a totally new approach. I mean, so I think this is the key here. Like, even if you are designing a trend-oriented game, it's not like before that you see a TikTok video with lots of millions of views and that you can you think that there's a huge CPI potential here because it's a TikTok trend. It's not gonna happen like next year, or it's gonna happen much less next year. But you can use it as your advantage if you can use that trend. And if you can mix it with a good game design, with a complicated game design, it can be a really potential for you. Like, it's the change.
Yeah, the trends like Squid Game is always going to be always out there, because as long as there's a trend in anywhere else in social media or in real life, there's going to be a hyper-casual game for it in the market. And you can actually be super fast and be the first one to make this game, or you can adapt to change in trends. But the thing is, if your entire developer business or game studio business is based on catching up with these trends and making a game for it, I think it's just not going to work, because the shelf life of these games are super short. So this strategy wouldn't work. So I would suggest not to go for making games from out of trends, even if you are the first one to make it. Thank you.
Yeah, just in specific cases you can do it, but in general, don't think about that. Okay.
Yeah, indeed, following the trends can be risky. It's very time-sensitive matter. We should definitely keep an eye on them, because who knows, probably we will find the next big thing really soon. But it's important to draw inspiration also from PC games, from everything surrounding us. And as far as drawing inspiration is concerned, what's the ideation process? How it looks like in your team?
So to be honest, we use like a generator or a mix of ideas where we put out the setting, the mechanic, etc., etc. When we try to mix it together and to brainstorm ideas, usually it's done by the game designer. I usually approve or add some features on the final stage. We do also have some core loops, which showed pretty good metrics in the past. So we are trying to also use the metrics, the analytics which we received from our games. So yeah, basically it's brainstorming the ideas, and then the game designers teams they're trying to rate ideas from 1 to 10, and based on these ideas we are going to the publishers to discuss with them or probably to add something more. We are trying to create some interesting core loops and what we can add later, but a lot of I know that a lot of founders or game designers are trying to go from the core loop, but to be honest we're still trying to generate the settings and mixing the mechanics, because for example for us it's kind of an easy to get potentially good metrics for idle arcade, but usually the CPI, I don't know, around 80 cents, and it's harder to decrease it. So we are trying also to think from the very beginning what we can show in the creatives and how we can decrease the CPI until, like, I don't know, 30 or 40 cents to be able to launch the idle arcade.
On our side, ideation is going like we have a methodology, especially. So I think the most important thing in a team when the idea comes, the communication. So in games there are lots of layers. You know, there are content, UX, UI, meta, progress, retention, playtime, CPM, CPI. There are lots of metrics. So when you are talking with your team, you should understand the same thing in the same word. So you should unlock all the things. What is the progression? What is the content? What is the difference between content and progression? What is the mechanic? What is the theme? So you should define all of them so well to understand each other better. When you do that, it's easy to find a new game, because everyone think about each other, each other thoughts. So you can find a new product more faster than other ways.
On the ideation side, like I am one of the people that who believes in there's a science behind it. Like I'm not, I know that it's all about creativity. Like it's all about your daily lives or your hobbies, the things you see from around your life, daily life. But also, I was always like the one who is pushing the limits. Like I think that there is a science behind, and I think that we can find it in a like scientific way. Like we tried like lots of different ways. Like I mean, keywords are here like one of the things that we tried. Like we were always like updating our keywords and trying to merge those keywords with like as possible ways as possible. And if we see good merges here, like and after that we try to detail the idea, etc. But this was one of our ways to make the ideations. But nowadays, the method is like for us like something like we have some titles that has that is like subgenres of hybrid casual side, and when we are making ideations, of course there are lots of sources like PC games, console games, YouTube, social media, etc. Those are the sources for us. But when you are designing the game as a game designer, you have to fill one of the titles, like or even you have to adapt your idea to under one of those titles or under one of those subgenres. Like this is something like that gathers the idea in a better way, and because since it's all about like creativity. Since if you don't make any rule on the ideation side, it always happens like you believe that you are testing lots of different kind of games and you don't have any focus, and this helps us a lot to focus on field stuff, but of course by not killing the creativity. And this is the method here.
Again, I'm going to cut it short because my colleagues pretty much mentioned the majority of things. Obviously, playing a lot of hyper-casual games from the stores helps a lot. I mean, you need to follow the trends and top charts, and not only the ones that makes to the like top of the charts, but also trending ones are important to play. But then again, this could also be a trap. I think if you only make games, if your creativity or ideas only come from existing games on the market, you might end up actually making copies of existing games and merging games that are successful is gonna just end up. So I think a good game or ideation process should start actually looking everywhere. A good game designer should be looking at PC games, console games, or casual or other mobile games as well. Also the real life. We see a lot of games that the idea actually came from the real life and it just works. So looking everywhere is the key, I guess. Thank you.
Interesting. So that means that everyone tries to adopt an approach which is more systemic, even to ideation phase, which was more of a fun thing before. Nowadays, you need to be really think in terms of data about your game ideas, and of course, at the gameplay is the core of any idea. And especially it was always important, but now it's even more important because we are talking more about in-game KPIs. We need to engage our players. And what would be your tips on finding sticky mechanics in engaging core loops?
So for me, it's more about playing the games in the market and I don't know, testing aquarium length and understanding, oh, okay, the core gameplay is good, the meta features are great, the content discoverability is also pretty important, and to probably to test more things and to understand what works better. I guess we have also some features from our game designers who are brainstorming, etc. But for me, it usually works like that. And also, I'm trying and improving all of the builds. And for me, it's easier to test the build that we are developing and to understand the game and to try to improve that. So it's usually like when you played hundreds of games, probably thousands. I don't know. It's easier to understand. Okay, that's better to place the things here like that, or probably you need upgrades there, or probably it's not feeling so good, so satisfying. Probably we need to add some features, some effects, something like that. And to be honest, from my experience, for me, it's harder to predict how the game will look like beforehand, because probably in your game, in your head, the game is pretty satisfying, but when you're trying it, it's not. So probably the best idea is to make and prepare the core mechanic in the build as soon as you can, and just test it out and to improve it with your feedback.
Actually, we are looking into three things at Major. So one is feeling. Feeling means the instant feeling, what you are doing, the feeling that you feel immediately. Progression, this is the whole feeling. What do you need to do? And there is a player motivation. What is my motivation? This is catchy. This is frustrating. This is what. So when you find three things in some games, in other games, you are trying to merge all of them. So that's the case for all of us. So, but the mechanic and the theme should be similar or relevant or native. If you can do all of them at the same time, you will have a scalable game. It will be maybe not the mega hit, but it will have money because you are putting every single needed layer on the game. If you can do that, you will have some good metrics, because retention comes from progression feeling. Playtime is coming from instant feeling, and the player motivation is covers all of the meta. So that's the case for us right now.
For us, it really depends on the design. I mean, so we have some kind of designs that the main focus is like it need to be really fun to play. Like, I mean, we believe that it's gonna stuck in some point in the CPI side, but we decided like that if it becomes really fun to play, we can cover up this gap with the CPI set. And for those games, like we immediately create a build like as soon as possible, including the core mechanic, like including the core mechanics, fun to play feelings. And after like 2 or 3 days, when we play the first prototype or first build, we decide on that point like yes, it is becoming fun to play as we thought about it before, or even it sometimes happens like it's not fun to play as we considered it before, like, and it's the point that we decide to kill the game. But there becomes some designs like it needs a medium amount of fun to play mechanic, but it's all about the feeling of the like maybe sometimes art, maybe sometimes it becomes animations or the environmental design, even it can be like for those kind of games you can see the potential before you are implementing like most of the stuff to the game. And it's all about polishing the game a lot. It's all about what you decide to make to find those potential CPI, and for those elements you have to polish the game a lot to not miss any CPI potential. And that's the games that you have to go like till the end, and you have to see the data whatever you do before testing it.
I think the content of the game and the mechanics relatability is the most important key here. You mentioned so whatever the content you put in the game, the mechanic you implement or do with this thing should be very relatable, and people should be able to understand at first glance. Because if you put a car, you will always drive the car. So this is a very basic idea, but you get the idea. So starting from here is going to solve a lot of problems. Another important thing is, having mentioned big raise in CPIs. Actually, developers could actually start making more polish of their games before testing it. This would also help with coming up with sticky mechanics, quick retention and playtime. So, yeah.
All right. So if we continue the topic of engaging gameplay, trying to retain the player for longer, we will inevitably land in the sphere of hybrid casual, which was a big topic this time. People talked a lot about it. And what's your take on it? Like, have you already worked on some hybrid casual projects? And if not, do you consider it in the future? And what were the changes you need to make to your team to adapt to hybrid casual?
As I said, almost like 80% of our production is idle arcades, and yeah, we released 2 games this year in idle arcade genre. So hybrid casual seems more promising for us compared to hyper casual. As for the production timeline, yeah, it's kind of different because for example, for idle arcade, our studio needs to have 1 month of production to prepare a build, and probably a few days to create creatives as well. So it's kind of different, and the quality of art and usually the art load is more. So you need to spend and to understand that your artist, or probably you need to hire more artists if you want to go there. Also, we've adapted the framework we use to be faster on creating the idle arcade genre. Probably it's a good idea if you can try to find, I don't know, one core loop and try a few more different settings with the core loop, because if you can reuse it, it will be faster. But to be honest, it's like copycats, and it's harder to launch and scale. So it's probably a harder thing, and you definitely need to adapt it, because when we just started the other arcade games, we received the first playable build, like, I don't know, in 3 weeks, for example, because they need to create a lot of art, game mechanics, etc., and it was harder to improve the build. So right now we're trying to create the first build into, I don't know, in 3, 4, 5 days with the core mechanic, and to prepare an art in 1 week, to be able to have these 2-3 weeks to improve the gameplay, to play test with the friends and family. So yeah, I would say it's more harder to build, especially if you like probably if you're working on PPP, just take into consideration as well, because it can also be a problem because you spend more time and money on that. But for us, yeah, the metrics are much better. For example, I don't know, 50% of all our idle arcade games comes to the iteration, and then yeah, probably, and so some of them launching. So yeah.
So I can give some cases about that question. For example, in the March, we launched our game Count and Bounce. It's a totally runner game. You are sliding the tiles and ball is going. At first, we launched it. It was hyper casual, and its metrics were lower. And after it, we think like what we can do, and we add an idle arcade at the end of the level. So when we are going to hybrid, we did it first, and we saw that retention increased 50% and playtime increased 100%. So after that, we thought like arcade idle is a thing. Yeah, we should think about think on it. And after that, we did an incremental idle game, and we launched it last month, Drift to Drag. And in that point, we unlocked what incremental needs, and now we are making a totally idle game, and this is a fully idle, and we are having very good metrics. So you should know what to do. So you should try at first, and after then you should see the big picture, and after then see the bigger pictures. So it should go step by step. If you want to pass directly to the hybrid, it's impossible on operation, on execution at the same time. But if you push it time by time, I think you can make it easier. That's the case.
We are also currently scaling two different kind of games, like which are both of them are on hybrid casual, and before that we also scaled a game again like an arcade idle game. And for the current scale operations, we come across with that since you are looking for a much more engagement than an hyper casual game, you are looking for much more better play times and much better day 7 retention than a classical hyper casual game. So those metrics are all about the progress. I mean, the progress is the keyword here. Like if you can convert your game into a design like the players are feeling like they are always in a progress, they are always like unlocking some new stuff that is catchy for them. I mean, it's not all about like implementing only content, like only new levels or only new items or shop or other stuff. Like it's not all about meta, but it's about how you design the flow, how you design the game flow, and how you design a sandbox like feeling to your game. I mean, for one game, like we first released the game like with a much restricted area, like everything was predefined, and the user was like in a flow of like he was unlucky or she was unlocking something, and later on unlocking something. It was all step by step that we predefined. But later on, we changed the whole design to a total sandbox gameplay. Like we want the player to become as free as possible. Like we want them to be go somewhere, unlock anything they want. If they wanna experience a totally new way, they should be able to. Like, and by doing that, we saw that a huge increase in the in-game KPIs. I mean, the first KPIs are also good, but this change was really huge. And this is the way, like, if you feel like a really good sandbox game design, and if you feel like the player is always in a progress, this will also lead your game to the inner purchase side too. Like, I mean, if they want to see new stuff, they will, after a time, they will start buying inner purchases, and they want to see new stuff, and they want to unlock new levels or new content. And that's the way we see with our current experiments.
Thanks. So from the publisher side of things, there are some quite few different things that we want to approach. So being involved in production process and ideation process of many hyper-casual games, we had to actually change some pipelines, because while making hyper-casual, the thing we put our most attention on is the core idea. So if the idea is good, we say, okay, let's go for it. But when it comes to hybrid casual, actually, the most important question is, what is the level 200 is going to look like? Seriously, this is the actual question. I mean, you don't need to actually design the level 200, but you need to understand how it's going to look like. So from the beginning, if your depth is good enough, you can go for it. This is the most important thing in making hyper-casual games. So in the pipeline, it's better if you, after the ideation process, add one more slot that only goes for how the game is going to look like on level 200, or after 1 hour of playtime, is it going to be boring, or is it going to introduce new things to the players? This should be the level 2 after coming up with the core idea. You need to ask yourself this question, and you should be good to go.
I want to add something, if it's possible. So at the same time, mechanic, if you go to the hybrid, mechanic is really important, because if you will do an idle game, it's a totally different thing. If you will do a puzzle game, it's a totally different thing. And all of them has specific mechanics. So you should think on the mechanics at first, because your pipeline is changing according to that. If you will do idle games, you will do idle games for 6 months. If you will do puzzle games, you will do puzzle games for 6 months. So at first, if you will do that, you should select your mechanics and your roadmap to understand the whole genre, So I want to add it.
Right. Thank you very much for sharing your experiences. And I guess there's one more thing which can be really helpful for developers. Since a lot of you actually already released successful games, it would be interesting to hear your opinion on what should be the skill set of a studio launching a successful game in 2022 and, well, of course, in the future in 2023.
Okay, it's a pretty tough question, I guess. I would say that right now in 2023, it's better to be a small studio with small operational costs who are fast enough, who can generate like dozens of ideas and pick just one of them and to try to improve it as much as they can. I would add as well that probably to find a good publisher or to improve the collaboration, because it all depends on the publisher side as well. Because, for example, we in this year and last year we also had some partnerships who are not ended well. For example, with one publisher we had a potential hit with the pretty good metrics in hybrid casual genre, but we were waiting for 3 weeks to receive the feedback for the iteration, and it was like a nightmare, and we missed the launch in the hit. And to be honest, the partnership is also important if you work with the publishers. So find someone who are pretty who are sharing with the same values, and it will be easier to make a hit. And probably, I guess the basic approach is the same, just generate a lot of ideas, thinking about the core loop. Probably I would say it's better to learn more analytics, because, for example, publishers usually asks just a bit of information like level progression, etc. But from your side, you can add the tutorial steps to understand where the users, what is the churn rate, what is the upgrade system, what's better to edit, and probably product analytics is the one thing worth mentioning. So
if you are a hyper casual studio, I think you should change totally your mindset in 2023, because you cannot do anything with the same mindset. Sector is changing, but when I'm looking to look from a publisher eye, publisher will need only talented teams. So you should work really hard, and you should change your mindset immediately, not to lose that revenue from publisher. When I'm when I talk about the self-publishing companies, it's easier because they have time to change themselves, and they will do the same thing, but with their own inventory. So it will be easier. But on both cases, the mindset should change at first, and after we will have some new best practices with those mindset. And I think in the mid of 2023, we will talk about new trends and new monetization types. So we should wait for all of them, and we should see what all studios are doing, because on hybrid side, as we said, it's really hard to find a big product. And if there is a big product, you should understand everything of it. So that's the easiest way to be successful.
So personally, I've been in the mobile gaming industry like 11 years right now, and that's too much. I feel old. And the first times that we are making games, like freemium was so new that nobody was talking about freemium. Everyone was making paid applications, paid games, and we started with that. Like we worked on a game like 2 years. Later on, we released the game and we fucked up. And then after 2 years of work, like it was a totally different thing. That's what we are talking right now. But later on, that there was times that only if the App Store makes you featured, makes your game featured, you will be able to successful by just getting organic downloads, etc. I mean, later on there was times that everyone was talking about ASO, making your app store organization optimizations, keyword optimizations, and again try to get as organic users as possible. And everything is changing like daily basis in mobile industry. Like, I mean, this is a really changing industry, and after lots of changes, like, I mean, I feel like we became like a survivor in the industry, like just by changing lots of stuff, like daily basis, monthly basis, or yearly basis, whatever it is. I mean, there are small changes in daily basis, but there are huge changes on yearly basis, and that's kind of an approach that you need to adapt your team. Like, if you design your whole pipeline, like not just in the production but also like in the ideation approach too, to become adaptive to the new things, and you don't have to power to say like I'm only adaptive to hyper casual games, I can only do hyper casual games. It's not the way your studio should go to. So if you have to go much more qualified games later on, or much more sophisticated game design next year, you have to adapt to it as soon as possible, and you don't have to courage to say I want to adapt to the new comings, and I will still do the previous things, and that's why I am good at previous stuff. Like, if you don't do that, you will probably come across with a kill with your studio, not only your game.
I think the answers we've been given since question 1 pretty much covered why or how you should make a game to be successful in 2023. To sum it all up, to make a successful hyper-casual game, next year is making a hyper-casual game, unless you actually have a very unique idea. Because you see there's going to be a big challenge in creativity. So I don't think a lot of studios are going to survive next year. Only the ones who are the most creative ones, or coming up with actual unique mechanics and gameplay features, are going to be out there. The shared total amount of players in the market is still going to be the same, but it's just going to be divided among less number of studios. That's my opinion. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that, but it's what it is.
As you can see, adaptability is always a key in this fast-moving industry, but hard skills, they matter a lot as well. What can be your advice to game developers how to improve their technical skills?
Okay, so yeah, as I shared in the previous question, I guess the most important thing I also see through with our game designers, it's better to improve your analytical skills from my side, from my perspective, because I'm not, to be honest, I'm probably more like an entrepreneur. I don't know how to develop games or how to create art. So I would say that analytics, understanding the metrics, I don't know, the marketing metrics as well, the LTV, the CPI, ROAS, it's better to understand how the creative works, how the game is potentially will be able to scale, etc., etc. So I would say probably try to get as many info as you can, at as many events as you can. Just by learning, you will understand what you need to have in your game. You will gain more data on that, and you will from each game you can learn a lot if you know how to do it. So I would say probably don't think that publisher will share you all the metrics, all the ideas, and try to do it by yourself as well.
Yeah, I think that on development side, if you want to improve yourself, I think, as I mentioned before, copycat is everything. I can say it very freely, because when you try a good product at the same way, it's hard to do that. If you can do that, you can do with a new idea. But if you cannot do that with the copycat, you cannot do that with a new idea. So you should try always the new mechanics and new hit games as a developer if you have time. And with this way, you can easily improve yourself. That's my idea.
If you are looking for more qualified products, I mean, there's only one point here, that you have to optimize your production pipeline. Like, since whatever you do, hyper casual, hybrid casual, or even if you are trying a casual game, the time is always a limit for you. Like, you need to speed up your production cycle. You need to speed up your whole process from ideation to the production, or from testing to the live ops. And to do that, you should invest on the technology side. Like, I mean, that's the only way. I mean, you have to automate some stuff, like from building to your projects, like your predefined projects when you are starting a new or similar idea, etc., etc. There are lots of stuff that you can automate, and there are lots of different investments that you can do to speed up your whole process. And when you speed up the production process, you will have more time to much focus on the UX side, and much focus on the polishing side, etc. And when you focus on those topics a lot, you will see that your product quality has increased a lot, and that's one of the things you have already need to do.
Yeah, I totally agree with automating things, because the biggest problem with hybrid casual is the time, since the time and the money of developers are limited, and they still need to come up with the same number of prototypes to test to be successful. I mean, that's what we think is going to happen in 2023. So automating some stuff, or like maybe you have SDKs ready, mechanics ready, or understand the market and what's going to be popular, and having them ready before you actually start making the games is going to cut the time you invest in making the game a lot. So this is one of the important things, I guess.
Great tips. I'm agreeing to everything I heard. And very interesting question, actually. Whatever the project you were working on, tested, like launched or killed already, what was the feature which was the biggest game changer? Do you have like a small case study you would like to share with us?
Okay, I will be pretty short. For one launch game on the release stage, just after scaling, we did an A/B test in the balancing part. We made the balance easier in the idle locate, and the monetization from grew up to, I guess, I can't remember, but it was about 30% just by balancing the game differently.
Yeah, I can say you a lot of case as I studied in Rolik and Pantheon. But so in our cases, as we said, I think we did the most effective things on in-game side. So I think when you relate something new, relate a new mechanic with the team, I think it works in every cases. If the game launched or not launched, it's not important. If you find a new mechanic into the team, it's working. So you should always search for it when you launch the game or kill the game. If you are believing to that team or mechanic, you should keep an eye and try the new team or try the new mechanic on same idea. We did see many cases that killed games comes after and return to a mega hit. So it happens, but it's harder right now. So while progressing, we should always think about new features when we are developing a game. It's not only one-time shot. You should always think on it. Even you killed or not, it's not important. You are not killing the idea. You are killing the game. So that's the case.
I will give two different topics here, like two different samples from different perspectives. I mean, we had a case like there was a game that we believe that it's really fun to play and it has a like hypnotical view with the game, and we were hyped for the game. But after the tests, and we were hyped for the CPI mostly actually, and after the test we saw that there came a CPI like $1.2, and it was a huge disappointment for us. And at that point, we decided to deep dive into the creatives. Like, I mean, we believe that it was something like a sixth feeling. Like, we believe that there has to be a good CPI. And when we deep dived into the creatives, we saw that there were some little problems. Like, I'm not going to deep dive into the details, but we made a few impacts on, and we created a few new sets for that game. And after that, when we opened the new campaigns, we saw that there are 20 cent CPI, like, and whole feature of the game suddenly changed, and it suddenly became a soft launch and etc. etc. And that was the key, one of the keys. And the second sample is like I gave it before. Like, I mean, we had a game on the hybrid casual side, and the KPIs were good, but not good enough as we expected. Like, the game was not going for day 7, and we believe that the game has much deeper mechanics that we believe that we could increase the progression part and increase the day 7 retentions. And on that point, even though most of the publishers or most of the studios could be satisfied with current mechanics, we decided to change the whole game flow. Like, we said that the core mechanic is good enough, and by changing the whole game flow, we believe that we can increase the day 7 or increase the engagement in total in a different way. And it was also a encouraging move for us that we saw the good results, and we saw that we had a really good impact on the in-game metrics by changing the whole game flow.
Although there could be a lot of different ways to do this, sometimes we have to tell the developers one simple thing, one sentence that could actually bring their statistics of the game up. So in that case, I will just say, if none of these works, just add metagame. It usually works. Not necessarily a lot, but it improves. If everything else is okay, just make sure the metagame is actually relatable with the actual game. So whatever you achieve in the metagame is either usable in the actual game core gameplay, or just anywhere else in the game. As long as they're related, I think it's just gonna improve pretty much.
Great. Thank you very much. Well, it demonstrates how one small thing can definitely change the whole situation. And thank you very much for this panel. It was super informative. Everyone learned something new. So thank you very much, and enjoy the conference.